Hi there, it's Megan from Voss Farms Cut Flowers, and I'm in the greenhouse today. It is the middle of February, and it's about 45 degrees and sunny outside, which is very unusual. That's more like April weather for us. And the greenhouse right now, I walked in, it was about 71, and I opened up the door and the vents because I have some tulips in here, and I wanted to cool it down a little bit. That's a bit too warm. I'm not quite ready for tulips yet. And so it dropped down to about 60. So it's nice and warm in here. And if you will see, we have tulips. So if you watched my last video about our tulips, the big apricot tulips, there they are poking their heads up. So tulips are well on their way because of this warm weather that we're having. But today I am all about seed starting. So it is the cool annual seed starting push. So in terms of flower growing, there are two main groups of cut flowers to be grown. There are the cool season annual that can handle cooler temperatures, and so you can plant them out either right before frost or when you can still get some frost and they can handle that cold temperature. And those will be the first flowers to bloom in the springtime. And then they kind of fizzle out when it gets to be those hotter summer temperatures and humidity, and that's where the warm weather annuals come in, and that would be like your zinnias and your sunflowers and all those heat-loving cosmos flowers come into play. So we kind of have two different rounds of seed starting to do, and it's very complicated because there are a lot of different seed varieties for each of these groups. However, it is somewhat beneficial as a flower grower because you have a lot more diversity, and then you also get a lot more variety when you come to flowers. And then it also, personally, I think it makes it a little bit more special when you get those seasonal blooms. You know, you wait all year to finally get those seasonal blooms that you can only get, you know, in early spring. And so I kind of enjoy that exclusivity, I suppose. But anyway, so we're going to be starting some of these cool flower annuals. And so I know a past video I talked about using soil blocks and how it's a space saver, and I did start Lisianthus. I started Canterbury bells in soil blocks. I started some of the very slower growing. I got some foxglove growing in a grow room in the basement under some grow lights and things, and it is working out very well. However, I did notice that because they're just in those 3/4 inch soil blocks, that they dry out very quickly in the house even. So I'm watering them at least once, sometimes twice a day in the house. And ideally, I would like to get my seedlings started in the greenhouse because they will get a lot stronger light from the sun. No amount of grow lights inside a house is going to replicate the light that they would get from the sun. And then also in the house, it's a little bit, you know, it's room temperature, it's warmer, and these cool season annuals love to have cooler temperatures. So the greenhouse, although it does get warmer during the day, it does maintain cool temperatures because there is no insulation in the greenhouse. So when it does get cooler at night, so does the greenhouse, and these plants thrive in cool temperatures. And if they get too warm, they will become weaker, kind of leggy, which means like the little seedlings just stretch and stretch because they're too warm and they're reaching for the sun, and that just doesn't produce strong flower stems, and it just doesn't create the best plant possible. And plus I have this beautiful greenhouse that my husband had found for me, so why not use it? So right now I'm able to run out here because both boys are napping, which is like a miracle. If you know my kids, like my little one, he'll usually go down for an afternoon nap, but my 3.5-year-old never takes a nap during the day. And thank God for my girlfriend. She had us over for a play date this morning, and so they were running around and playing and having a great time, and by the time we got home in the car, they had fallen asleep in the car. And so I'm like, yes, we have a nap, they're both napping, it's a miracle. So I decided to like quick run out while they're sleeping, and I'm just gonna fill up some trays with soil. Like, that's all I'm asking for right now. And then we'll come back later tonight after they're asleep so I can focus on putting seeds in the tray so that I don't get interrupted and accidentally have spillages or anything like that, and I can focus a little bit more. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm filling up some plug trays. So I just have a bag of Pro Mix potting soil over here. I have my potting tray right here just to help contain some of the dirt. And I am just gonna go ahead and start filling trays with seeds, and we'll get at it. So I filled 7 128 cell trays, and so now we're gonna fill up 7 more of the 72 cell trays, which are the larger ones here. Actually, yes, this is a 72 cell. And then I also have 2, where did they go? I had them. I have 2 60 cell trays that I'm going to fill just to pot up or size up the foxglove. And then also I'd like to pot up some of the, the campanula or Canterbury bells up just to a larger size, because they're starting to put on some true leaves on them. And so I'd like to get them into larger cells so I can put them out here and expose them to some of the cooler temperatures, which they really like. And so then that way they can kind of grow, and then they won't dry out so fast since they are going to be in a larger cell. So let's fill up these larger ones. And if it seems like this is the never-ending bag of potting soil, it's because it comes as a compressed bale. So it's real packed in there, so I just rake my hands and kind of fluff it up. And so it just keeps expanding. And so, I mean, a lot fits in this bag. It's about 4 times the size of a standard potting mix bag. So it's super handy. A lot gets out of it. And I really like it. It works out very well. So 72. And we are back to our seed starting. It's actually the next day. I just wasn't able to get to it last night. So this morning we're going to go ahead and get into getting the seeds into the trays behind me that we filled up yesterday in the greenhouse. And I also have my stack of seeds that we're going to be starting today. So first thing before I put seeds into the trays is I'm going to get them wet. So I'm going to put them in the sink, and I'm going to just wet the soil in the trays a little bit, because when that potting mix comes straight out of the bag, it's a little bit dry. And if you've ever filled a pot, you know, just like a pot with annuals seasonally, and you get it like a brand new bag of potting soil, and then you go to water and it kind of becomes like this soupy mess. And then like the soil starts to float to the top and it gets kind of so I wanted to do that and get that out of the way and make sure my soil is nice and moist, because if I put the seeds in first and then try to water them, and then that whole soupy thing happens and stuff starts to float, I can dislodge the seeds, and some of them need to be buried a little bit more, some of them have to be surface sown, and I don't want to risk them sinking lower and not being able to have light. Some of them require light to help germination, and so if they get displaced and something covers them, then they just won't germinate. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wet them in my sink. I have like this really awesome single basin sink that I just love, and so I'm able to put a whole seed tray in there, and I'm just going to kind of get it wet first, and then we'll go ahead and start putting seeds in them. gonna lift that into the drip tray so that I won't get a whole bunch of water on my counter when I'm seeding. And so this is a 128 cell pack. And so I just kind of jotted down what I wanted to seed today and what size cell to put those seeds in. So one of the complicated things about growing cut flowers is because there's such a vast variety of different flowers being grown, and each seed has special seeding requirements. So some seeds require light, some seeds require darkness, some need to be buried a 1/4 inch, some need to be surface sown. And like I had mentioned yesterday, some of them like cooler temperatures, so you germinate them and grow them out at cooler temperatures. Some require, 80 degrees to germinate. So you really have to coordinate and remember and kind of organize what seeds you're starting and then what their preferred conditions are in order to get the best germination rate. And so I kind of just jotted down a list. And also, so the different size cell packs is based on how quickly something grows. So if something is going to grow fast or it's a larger seed, it's best to put it in a 72 cell tray. Things that take a little bit longer, that will stay smaller and are either okay to be a little bit root bound in their cell pack are better for the 128 cell. Because some things also don't like to have their roots disturbed. And so some of these seeds are best direct sown just out into the flower beds, and so you will have to just seed out into the field, and that's the best way that they grow, and they just don't respond well to growing in a cell pack and being transplanted out. So I have a spreadsheet in the computer, but just for today's purposes, I just wanted to quick jot down because also there's succession planting. And so some of these plants are good for the full season and they just keep pumping out blooms and you can keep harvesting them. And some of them are just a one stem cut, and once you cut that one stem, the whole plant is done. So you have to keep sowing and seeding the same variety multiple times throughout the season so that you can keep getting those same flowers, because once you cut that, it's all done. So that's why it's important to keep organized and have a spreadsheet and remember and try to give the seeds the best possible opportunity to germinate so we can get the best results when we spend all this time planting and starting these seeds. So some of the things I'm going to be starting today are stock. It's a flower called stock, and it is single cut, so one cut and then it's done, but it's beautiful. Sometimes you'll have double petaled, smells kind of like cardamom, kind of like a spice scent. They're very pretty. So we're going to do some of those. Like I have just a mix, and then also a vintage brown, which is like a real pretty dusty rose color. I also have some white. Cat, come here. Quit your barking. You don't need to bark. I also have Scabiosa. I have some straw flower. Statice. Nigella. These have some really cool pods. So I don't grow them necessarily for the flower, but the pods are really cool. Orlaya, which has a really nice lacy sort of umbral shape to it. I also have lots of Snapdragons, and so I'm sure you're familiar with the traditional Snapdragon that you use for pots. And so that's why we have to start a lot of our cut flowers from seed, is because what you would find or purchase at a grocery, or not a grocery store, at a greenhouse or nursery, is a dwarf variety of a lot of the same things we have. And so like you can get celosia to put into a pot, but that's the dwarf variety, so only get about 6 to 8 inches tall, whereas the varieties that I grow are going to be 24 to 30 inches tall, just because it doesn't have, it's a different variety. So the Snapdragons that I grow, you're familiar with, like you can pinch it on the side and make the little snap dragon mouth open. I loved them as a kid. I always loved to like make them talk. So I do have some of those traditional shaped snapdragon flowers, but also they have different varieties that are an azalea type. And so they are more of a open, they don't really have a mouth, but they are more of a cup-shaped flower, and some of them have a double petaled, so they're just really frilly and really large and beautiful. And so I have a few varieties of those as well. So I'm excited to get those started. And let's see. Oh, and some Rudbeckia. So Rudbeckia typically doesn't start flowering until about July, but it's a very slow growing flower. Or the plant, it takes a while to get established. So I'm going to start them now, and I'll put them in 128 cells, and they'll just kind of write it out, and I'll plant them out early, and then they'll kind of just take a lot of time to develop and get established, and then we'll have some pretty things coming on in July, and kind of have that black-eyed Susan type flower for the summer months, which is perfect. And what else? Oh, I have some Feverfew. So I have a yellow and then a double petaled white Feverfew to grow this year. I have not grown Feverfew, but I've heard it's pretty easy and pretty successful. And then also, so I was talking about a lot of instructions on how to sew. So one of the companies I buy from called Johnny's, they are fabulous about putting all of their starting their seed growing germination information on their seed packet. So they're super handy. You know, when you're sewing them, like, you know exactly what they like, how deep to sew them, if they need light, if they need dark. So this is very handy, although another company that I like that has a large variety of seeds available, GeoSeed, they have nothing. There's nothing on here, so you have to kind of look it up and keep a catalog, and that's why your spreadsheets are so handy, because you can just kind of jot down the most important information that you need to know when you're planting them. So anyway, so this is what I am doing today. You can kind of follow along with me. Once I'm done putting the seeds into each of their cells, I have a mister, so I'll go and mist them just to settle the seeds in, give them just a little bit of extra moisture, cover them with the humidity dome, and then I'm going to put them out in the greenhouse. It should be warm enough in there during the day, especially on sunny days, and I have a small heater out there just to take the edge off. So when it does get kind of bitter cold at night, it should stay above freezing in there. So we're gonna give it a go, and I'm hoping that, especially with the humidity domes, that will just be an extra layer of insulation. So we're gonna give it a shot. I have all of these trays to fill, and I don't have anywhere in the house to put them, so they have to go in the greenhouse. So we'll see. So if this works out, I'm gonna be thrilled, and if it doesn't, we're just gonna have to figure it out. So I'm sure everything will be fine. But anyway, so let's get started. You think you can do this? We've got to put one in the hole. Right here. Put it right here. Put one right here.
Here.
Oops. Okay, right here. Good job. Right here. Here.
It's here. Here.
Right here.
Sorry.
These are kind of small.
Yeah.
Oh, no! Are you sniffing them? Don't sniff them.
I see it about my yay. Echo.
Way to go. Blowing right here.
But here.
Good job. Yeah.
I see Sally here.
Okay.
See.
This one's all done.
Then I think pen. I think that the cutter. I think the first is the butter.
Hello again, and it is the afternoon now, so after some hours of seed starting with many interruptions from my two kids, I got everything I wanted started, and I put them all out here in the greenhouse. So I just kind of wanted to give you a quick look about what it looks like, and everyone's kind of tucked in their humidity domes, and it's pretty full right now between the tulips and then all my seed trays out here. So let's take a look. So here we are in the greenhouse, and I have all of our trays started on the top shelf here. I have most of them under humidity domes. I didn't quite have enough domes for every single tray, so I left the ones that could be buried a little bit underneath the potting mix, such as the Scabiosa. It goes in under 1/4 inch of the potting soil, and then over here I've got some Nigella and Orlaya that also have to go under the surface of the potting mix. So I'm hoping that gives them enough protection and they'll still get enough moisture to help those seedlings pop. Otherwise, everybody else is tucked in under their little humidity domes, and you can tell that there's already some condensation going on inside, so they are holding in that humidity. Down on the floor here, you can see actually here, these are my campanula that I potted up. They were started in my soil blocks, and they were starting to get a first set of true leaves, which per the instructions on the seed packet said once they were starting to do that, to pot them up into a cell pack. So I did that, and I had also done a second succession of them, and so I figured, well, I might as well just fill the whole tray with some baby ones. So I just went ahead and popped those ones up a little bit early, because these especially require cold to start off, otherwise they don't get quite as tall, and it just creates a stronger plant. And then down here on the bottom, I have all of our tulips potted up, and they're just hanging out on the floor because the floor stays cooler. You know, it's at a lower elevation, and then plus the stone floor keeps them cooler, just because I'm not quite ready to get those tulips forced yet. Although the apricots, like I showed earlier, are already starting to form. You can see their little red nubs starting to poke up. So this should slow them down. They were on the top shelf, so we'll kind of cool them off a little bit for a while. Have some extra supplies down here. I turned the heater on just to take the edge off. It's currently off right now, and it's about 54 in here. So I'm going to play with it. It doesn't have like a digital thermostat on it. It just has a knob. So you just kind of have to adjust it according to what the temperature actually is in the greenhouse. So I'll be monitoring that to make sure that we're at a good temperature for everyone to be growing in here. And then on this side over here, I've got more of our trays that are all tucked in. This is super handy. This is an automatic vent opener. So when it reaches 70 degrees, and you can adjust the temperature range, but once it gets up to 70 degrees, the vent will pop open on its own. It's just a pneumatic tube or a cylinder in there. So then it's the physics, you know, once it starts to expand, it pushes the piston through the rod and then opens the vent automatically, which is super nice. And so then there is the rest of our seedling tray. So I just wanted to kind of show you where we were ending for the day, and I'll give you updates as these start to germinate, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll have lots of green in this room. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and check in for updates on our flowers. Bye.